Hey, yo, wrestling podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Guys, are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively to Facebook users. You can create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, build your own corporation. Everything is included, totally free in Wrestler Unstoppable to Facebook users. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shout-outs like John down in Texas, then make sure you check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. If you are a $15 a month contributor, you can co-host a live episode with myself. $7.50 a month contributors also get entered into a drawing to co-host an episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, you've got comments, things you want us to touch on, give us a shout at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Questions, comments, anything, and we'll try to get to that in a future episode. And, of course, there's always our homepage, ProWrestling.com, which is the home hub of everything that is the Pro Wrestling Podcast. So, jumping into several items tonight, we have a lot to talk about. We've been off the air for a little bit. We've been very busy to start off the year. We didn't get to do the annual Royal Rumble discussion where, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought that was the most boring Royal Rumble I've seen in my life. But I don't want to dwell on things from a couple weeks ago. I want to focus on the now, and we'll get started with AEW. The whole tease all week about a major signing in AEW, and to be perfectly honest with you, when I'm watching Dynamite, I really thought that Jay White from New Japan Pro Wrestling showing up on Dynamite may have been that big signing. Now, to a diehard wrestling fan, which you must be if you're tuning into this show, Jay White is a big signing. We appreciate Jay White because he's a phenomenal in-ring talent. He's been wrestling for New Japan. He's been doing some appearances with Impact Wrestling, now at All Elite Wrestling. That could have been it. And perfectly honest with you, if you're a junkie like us, that's an incredible signing. Now, that turned out to not be the biggest signing. The biggest signing comes later. We'll discuss that in a minute. But I just want to touch on the Jay White signing. I think that, or I shouldn't say signing. I guess this may be a one-off to do a short program with somebody in All Elite Wrestling. With a lot of the contracts in New Japan right now being renegotiated, people's contracts coming due, being offered less and less money for whatever reason in New Japan, courtesy of the COVID pandemic or whatever, it could be a good time for Jay White to make the permanent move to the United States and really become a main event star. And that's something I think he can do in AEW much better than any of the other promotions. Let's be honest. Impact Wrestling doesn't have the viewership, and WWE is not going to take a chance on a guy who does not have a big enough established name. But for those of you who've watched Jay White wrestle, you know his skills. He's incredible. So you get him to AEW, let him put on some of those world-class quality matches, and maybe perhaps at some point he does prove to the world how great he is, and he can be a top draw for WWE or a long-term AEW contract. I'd be okay with either one. I was actually very happy to see that, and I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say dream matches for everybody, because not everybody is as into it as I am, but definitely for somebody like me, a diehard like me, definitely dream matches there. Now, of course, the big surprise was the appearance of Keith Lee appearing for AEW. That was the big shock signing that Tony Khan teased. The problem I have with this is the hype from Tony Khan was on the level of, say, a Braun Strowman kind of shock and surprise, or a Bray Wyatt. I understand that we all know who Keith Lee is. I also understand that we all appreciate Keith Lee, and I want this to come from the bottom of my heart. Keith Lee is one of the most amazing talents in the world. It is an awesome signing. I'm not knocking that. I'm knocking the build-up because I think sometimes Tony Khan tries to appeal to us, the diehard wrestling fans, and at some point when you hear people like Chris Jericho on his podcast talking about where they're going in the next couple years, you're going to have to move past just the diehard wrestling fans. I do not want the product to get any less than what it is now, but you're going to have to start to bring in some of those other WWE fans who are mainstream fans. I love the advertising I've seen lately, but when it comes to announcing a major signing, that should have been a Bray Wyatt or a Braun Strowman or something on that level. Keith Lee, phenomenal, and honestly, AEW will let him do what he needs to do to show the world that Keith Lee is a dominant megastar waiting to bust out. Always is incredible on the independent scene. Now he's going to have the footprint and the exposure to really show people what he can do. WWE It was like Keith Lee light. For anybody who ever watched Keith Lee in other promotions prior to WWE, that was Keith Lee light. I guess the NXT time was a little closer to actual Keith Lee. Now we'll actually get some legit Keith Lee. And obviously the announcement of a major surprise drew in the viewers last night. The Nielsen ratings, 1.129 million viewers, one of the biggest turnouts in quite some time, up over 18% from the previous week. So that's great for AEW. And it's great to see that there's such interest in their announcements. I just hope that their announcements maintain the level of excitement when people see somebody like Keith Lee when they were really hoping for a Bray Wyatt or something of that nature. Staying on the AEW thread, the inner circle, the constant conversation about teasing a split up and a breakup and all this. Look, here's the deal. I love the inner circle when they first got started. They were a cool faction. I love, you have the tag team specialists. This is almost like a four horseman thing. You got the tag team guys in Santana and Ortiz. You got the old guy in Chris Jericho, like the Ric Flair character. You got the young guy, which is Sammy Guevara. And you got like the powerhouse, which is the Jake Hager. I was fine with that. But it has been quite a while. And let's be honest, when was the last time you saw the five of them together on AEW television? If you want to be considered a faction, you have to appear more frequently together. And I never understood the booking of putting Santana and Ortiz in a program with anybody but Inner Circle members. Eddie Kingston, he's not an Inner Circle member, so I never understood that to begin with. Now, I get it. You want to have the Kingston-Jericho match, do it, but you don't have to do it the way they did it. Now, on the flip side, I actually think if this whole thing blows up and everybody goes their separate ways, it's probably a good thing. Santana and Ortiz, though it's not quite as grim as they make it out to be, they have had world tag title shots. They haven't done much, These, huge stadium matches and gimmick matches they've had as the Inner Circle have been interesting and they've been fun, but they're really nothing, unique, special about tag team wrestling. Sammy Guevara, I'm just being honest, he is proving that he has such a brilliant future in the business. He's so young. He's so talented. I love letting him free so he can go spread his wings and really show people what he can do without having to have all the muscle behind him. Jake Hager, I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's never gotten the respect he deserves for being a very good professional wrestler, but I also question sometimes his commitment to wanting to still be on the road doing this as often as you kind of need to do to remain relevant. In terms of Chris Jericho, he's timeless. I'll be honest with you. He's one of the best wrestlers in the history of the business, just my opinion. And we're going to get to best of all time in a moment. But I think at this point, Jericho would be better served maybe sticking with Hager and just doing their own thing or just going on his own. Be that single star who just has these programs of one guy here, one guy there, because let's be honest, you can only do so much when you're going against the entire faction. And how many times are we going to see, say, like last summer when you see a wrestler go through an entire stable, going Chris Jericho going through Wardlow and Shawn Spears, and going through FTR, all that just to get to MJF. How many times can you do that same storyline? Because we just redid that again with, the whole Dark Order thing to get to, other people. So it seems repetitive to me. Move Jericho away from the group, dissolve the group. It was great while it lasted, but move on. I don't know what you do with Hager. He's the biggest stickler for me. I'm fine with Jericho being a single star. I'm very happy with Santana and Ortiz really getting a legit crack at being the best tag team in the company. I'm thrilled to the gills about Sammy Guevara, but I don't know what you do with Jake Hager. He's really the tough one for me because I don't want to see him go unless he's going back to mixed martial arts, which I know he has some interest in, but I don't know, man. Like at his age, he's got to start thinking about what he wants to do here and make some firm decisions. But I think splitting up the group probably a great idea. I don't necessarily love the way they're doing it, but I think in the end, the ends justify the means. They need to get this group closed out and move on to bigger and better things. Before we get to WWE stuff, just going to throw an NWA thing out there because I don't think the NWA gets talked about enough. And right now, they are setting up like just an amazing storyline has been going on with Trevor Murdoch and Matt Cardona. So, these two have been having like this online Twitter war that's been going on. And these two, they have history going all the way back to WWE days from years ago. And they're going to be meeting for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship very soon. And they're building a great story. And I think what gets overlooked is, the mainstream wrestling fans, they remember Trevor Murdoch as being this fat, out-of-shape tag team wrestler with Lance Cade. I get that. Cade and Murdoch were solid. God rest his soul, for Lance Cade. But Trevor Murdoch has spent a lot of time now in the independent world, really honing his craft, and he's a solid worker. And Matt Cardona has, since leaving WWE, has pretty much been like the poster child for like walking through every door. Forget Forbidden, he's just walking through every door. GCW, Impact Wrestling, various other independent promotions in my area. He went to the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance and actually put a young local talent over. Merrick Miami. It was a great match. I was there. If you haven't heard of Triple W 3WA, check them out on YouTube. Watch the matches. I mean, he's been doing a great job of both, cultivating his reputation and helping other local talent. I love that about it. What I feel bad about is the fact that these two are getting ready to have what could be an incredible opportunity this Saturday at NWA Power Trip, and almost no one's going to see it. And it's a shame because the NWA is putting on some incredible wrestling, and they're telling stories, and they're likening their program back to, days of, the past. The whole presentation feels very 1970s, 1980s NWA style. And I just hope more people take the time to go seek it out because it really is an incredible product. WWE news, Bill Goldberg, we know he came back. There's a litany of people who are frustrated that he's getting another World/Universal Championship opportunity. I mean, what has he done to deserve that except to get beat in the last several? It's too often. It makes it look like anybody could walk in the door and just demand a championship match at any point in time. Yet the guys who are there grinding it out every single week often never even get an opportunity. When was the last time you saw Cesaro get a shot? I'll tell you myself, last year, like 9 months ago. And now he's not even in the Royal Rumble. So at what point does WWE stop bringing in part-timers to pop the crowd? And now it's not even popping the crowd. People see Goldberg come back and they're like, dude, why? Really? Again? Now here's the thing. Please temper that a little bit because I think Goldberg and Reigns 2 years ago at Mania would have actually been fun. Of course, Reigns would have squashed him, but it would have been fun. I think a lot of people give Bill Goldberg a tough time right now because of the Saudi Arabia match with The Undertaker and giving the championship to him from The Fiend when that probably shouldn't have happened either. Neither of those are Bill Goldberg's fault. Those are all WWE's, booking decisions. That's not his fault. I actually think he's been trying very hard to deliver on his matches. His last match was very good for a Bill Goldberg match. I was literally watching WCW Monday Nitro episodes on the Peacock Network today, and I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing, when he used to do, like, judo moves and stuff like that mixed into his matches, not just the big, spear jackhammer stuff. He actually used to wrestle just a little bit, and it was perfect. I wish they would let him do some of that and stop going for the big moves, and that's all he does. But if that's all they're going to do, the word is he's going to be added to this Friday's SmackDown on Fox, and it's going to live it'll be live from New Orleans. He'll be at the Elimination Chamber Go Home episode, and then he'll be at the Elimination Chamber itself. That's in Saudi Arabia, and then that's about it. He's not listed for anything after that leading into WrestleMania, which would indicate to me he's not going to be a part of that show. And if you're going to have Goldberg and you're going to pay Goldberg, you would think that would be a show you'd use him at. I'm wondering if this may be the end of Goldberg as an in-ring competitor. If it is, it's a great way to go out going against Roman Reigns, and I'll give him the kudos for that. People have to understand, too, when they go to Saudi Arabia, they have to do what the Saudi Arabian fans want to see, and they love Bill Goldberg. There's certain things they absolutely – that's why Lita's a part of the card. They love Lita. So, and I think that's going to be a fantastic match anyways. But the point is, please don't look at it for more than it is. It's not WWE trying to once again give Bill Goldberg a championship opportunity. It's we have to go back to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and those people are going to be more responsive to Bill Goldberg than they will anybody else on the roster right now that they could bring in to do that match that doesn't mess up a WrestleMania program. But keep in mind, like, we're going to see a women's elimination chamber in Saudi Arabia. Think about socially, from a political standpoint, how big that is. We're going to see Lita and Becky Lynch go at it for the Raw Women's Championship. That's huge. So there's so much going on over in the Saudi Arabia show. Please give it the opportunity to surprise you. Don't get me wrong. After that Royal Rumble, anything could disappoint me. Just saying. But hopefully they put something good together for Goldberg. If this is indeed his last opportunity, last match, whatever. I'm okay with what he's done. He's been trying to give back to the business and in the best way he can in his 50s. And I think, let's be honest, there's a lot of wrestlers wrestling into their 50s, 60s, and some of them 70s. Hell, Jerry Lawler's going to be wrestling forever. And though, I mean, Jerry Lawler might be the wrong one to bring up because I think he still looks like Jerry Lawler 30 years ago, but most of these guys look like decrepit old people and they're still trying to go out and do it. Goldberg still looks like $1 million. The dude's ripped in his age, so give him some due. It takes a lot to keep yourself in that ring ready shape and to have that body density at his age. And he's doing a lot to try to help the product. And from what everybody's been saying about him in the back with the boys, he's being very welcoming and trying to be pleasant towards people and build some morale in the back, which has been very low, especially since the Royal Rumble with all the insanity. I don't want to get into a whole Shane McMahon conversation, but it was announced today that apparently Shane's still working for the company in some capacity after all the riffraff at the Rumble, resulting in him getting sent home. So, you got to do something to have these people build goodwill when morale is so low. And I think right now Goldberg is doing that. And the last tidbit for tonight, just a silly tidbit, every once in a while you see something goofy. And Seth Rollins this week was on the Pat McAfee show, and they were talking about a variety of topics, but they brought up the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. And Seth Rollins, he really focused his on in-ring workers. And, of course, he started with Shawn Michaels, Eddie Guerrero, Bret the Hitman Hart, which if that's his metric, is all about the in-ring performance, I'm okay with those ones. I really am. He joked about Steve Mongo McMichael, which I thought was pretty funny. I love it that he, threw something like that in there. And then he included Bryan Danielson, or AKA Daniel Bryan, as the fourth one, talking about, he says, I actually think in ring, he's one of the greatest of all time. And I think when it's all said and done, he'll be up there with the guys. And I respect that. And it really got to me thinking, I was talking this episode over with some friends earlier today, and they were really hitting me over my Mount Rushmore. And that's the problem when he talked about in-ring performers. Because what do you put on your Mount Rushmore in pro wrestling? Is it the best talker? Is it the best attraction who drew the most money, most tickets? Is it the best, could Hulk Hogan be Hulk Hogan without great heels to work again? Could Ric Flair be Ric Flair without great baby faces to work with? And that being said, that's part of why if I was picking my route, I've never done a Mount Rushmore before. This will be the first time. And I'm just going to say this the way I have to. Shawn Michaels, as an in-ring performer, heel, babyface, doesn't matter. And as a speaker, is phenomenal. I think when they talk about being showman and Mr. WrestleMania and all that, I'm in. And so I would agree, Shawn Michaels goes on my list. I think number 2 for me is Ric Flair, because he also has been heel, babyface. He was the guy who did that incredible NWA schedule all through the heyday of the NWA, helped launch WCW, and really was the glue that held WCW together. WCW's darkest period of time is the short period of time when Flair left to go to WWE. And then when he returned, it started to take off again and led into where the Nitro period began. So I have to give it to Flair. Michaels and Flair, the in-ring capability is just off the chain, ridiculous, stupid good. And then I had some trouble because I thought about, people who've been listening to this show for all the years I've been doing it, they know that I'm a diehard Seth Rollins fan from his work in Ring of Honor into FCW, all the way into WWE, the main roster, and everything. And I think he's still doing incredible work. I think Roman Reigns is doing a great job. I think Kenny Omega is doing a great job. But those are all contemporaries, and they don't have the longevity for me to put them on my Mount Rushmore yet. That being said, I was really trying to think. And, after Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, who are the guys who can do it all? And to me, heel, babyface, if you can do both, to me, that matters as much as well as being an in-ring performer and doing it on the mic. So when I thought about this, I wrote it down. I thought about it. AJ Styles is my number 3. The guy has done everything from going from little NWA Wild Side shows, winning the NWA Championship in the initial run of TNA, putting that company on his back to where, whether people want to admit it or not, at TNA's heyday, they were drawing more viewers than currently tune in to Dynamite. If you don't believe me, go back and check the numbers. When TNA was at their highest point, AJ Styles was the flagship carrier, and they were over the ratings you currently see for Dynamite. And the reason that's relevant is because WWE was much higher ratings than they are now. That's back when they were still getting a 4.0 in the Nielsen ratings, not the 2 point whatevers they get now. And nowadays, when WWE's down into the 2s, naturally AEW is going to be down into the 1s. Well, this is back when they were in the 4s in WWE, and these guys were in the 1 point whatevers consistently, well over a million viewers consistently. And that happened because WWE was better, which drew in more mainstream fans, which opened their eyes to alternative products like, at the time, Impact Wrestling. If you look at Impact's roster back then, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, a young and incredible Bobby Roode, James Storm, people like that, Kurt Angle, Sting. You had the big names to solidify, to work around with, like the younger guys. I don't care what it is, all the way down to people like Matt Morgan, the Blueprint, and people like that, just incredible talents. And I think AJ was the one guy who could work with any of them. Then you leave there, go to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and almost completely reinvent yourself. And he did it just masterfully. And then he finally wraps all that up, and he finally makes his way to WWE, where even Vince McMahon, I don't think, ever had the idea or the dream in his mind that when AJ Styles walked out at the Royal Rumble, he was going to get the reaction that he got. And when he did, from that day on, he was a stud for WWE and always has been, even with the Omos nonsense. He's doing what he's doing because he's trying to get back to the profession, help build Omos's character. But let's be honest, if tomorrow or this weekend or whatever he were to win the Elimination Chamber, nobody would be surprised. Nobody. They just wouldn't, because he's that good. Good guy, bad guy, heel, babyface, doesn't matter. No matter who the opponent is, you can trust him for a great match. No matter what company he worked in, he always had great matches. So AJ Styles is my 3. And then my 4th one really messed with me. As a fan, as a child, I would have told you Hulk Hogan in a heartbeat because he was the biggest attraction. As I got a little older, I would have said Stone Cold Steve Austin because he revolutionized the business. Maybe I would have said The Rock because he was so electric in the ring. Maybe I would have said something like Triple H, who all the other legends talked about how they wanted to wrestle him because he was so, perfect in the ring, and he did so well. Maybe it was Macho Man Randy Savage because he was the perfect antagonist for a lot of his feuds. There's certain people I wouldn't even consider, like the Ultimate Warrior and people like that, who were still huge draws, but clearly weren't the in-ring performer. And I really thought about this, Brock Lesnar's and Roman Reigns's and all these people, and it occurred to me, the guy who doesn't get brought up enough, I think, is Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was a babyface, a heel, multiple-time world champion, legitimate worker, Olympic gold medalist. I know that's part of his shtick, but he really was an Olympic gold medalist. And then when he leaves WWE, he goes to Impact Wrestling, and he's on a whole nother level. His matches with Samoa Joe are just legendary. He even goes to New Japan Pro Wrestling and walks out of there as IWGP champion at one point. The guy has done everything. And in case you ever never saw it, right at the end of his career, prior to going back to WWE, he did almost like a farewell tour. He wrestled Cody Rhodes and some of these other talents that are out on the independent scene, went all over the world, 5-Star Wrestling and all these places. And his matches were just, oh my gosh, electric. Joe Hendry and all these people that he wrestled, you never would have got to see on a WWE show. And I just feel like he is the man who should absolutely be considered for the Mount Rushmore. So that is mine. Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, AJ Styles, and Kurt Angle. You can feel free to disagree. Please put comments in the section. If you got YouTube, enable the bell. You'll find out whenever we put up an episode up. And feel free to respond and comment. If it's through your streaming service, give us a comment through your streaming service. I don't care, but think about what I'm saying. They always debate. Is it the draw? Is it the showman? Is it the in-ring worker? Is it the talker? Those 4 guys, I feel like, have done all of those things. Maybe Hulk Hogan was a bigger draw than Ric Flair, but Hulk Hogan had a machine behind him that was totally focused on wrestling in a way that no other company ever was. Stone Cold Steve Austin had that same machine. The Rock, his window of time where he was the man was much shorter than any of the guys I'm talking about. So I think about all those things, longevity and skill set, in-ring, the promos and all that stuff. CM Punk is way up on the list for me, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought about him, but when you think about the absolute dream matches, he didn't really have a ton of them. Sure, he wrestled the John Cena's and he had a Triple H match and an Undertaker match, but it's just not enough. I hate to say it. It's not. Ric Flair, when he's well past his prime and stuff like that, it just wasn't enough for me to put him on Mount Rushmore. The one that really broke my heart was Chris Jericho. I'm a huge Jericho fan, and I really want to put him on the list. And I think there's nobody in the business who's reinvented himself as well as Chris Jericho. But I just don't see it superseding the accomplishments, the skill set, the ability to work with anybody, all of that stuff, the way those 4 have. If I was going to put Jericho on the list, which like I said, I've made my call. Those are my 4. Maybe he goes in for AJ Styles. Maybe. But I don't think that's the case. I don't see it. Unfortunately, I don't think he's the quality of wrestler that Kurt Angle was. I don't think he even is the same as AJ, Ric Flair, or Shawn Michaels in terms of in-ring ability. He can do some things that those guys can't, but that doesn't mean that he does the same thing they do in terms of crowd reaction, response, storytelling, selling, all those things. I don't know that he does those as well. Otherwise, he'd be on there as well. But that is my Mount Rushmore. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks as always out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce all the music we use in our shows. Today's show sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game by Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college or university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And until next time, everybody, take care, have a wonderful evening, and make sure, if you get the opportunity, tune in to the NWA Power Trip show. It should be killer. Watch the Matt Cardona versus Trevor Murdoch match. That's going to be off the chain. Until next time, guys, everybody, take care. Have a great one.